you finish your preparations, do a quick gear check, and head out for a long run. You have a general idea of where you're running to, but you decide to let yourself drift into your music. You're about halfway through, and then something starts to feel off. Nothing is giving you any sort of indication that there are any physical pains, but you feel like you are hitting a wall of some sort, and then, suddenly, you stop. You don't really know why, but you suddenly don't have enough energy or motivation to continue your run. Chances are, if this has happened to you in the past, you know all too well what it is like living with mental health issues as a runner. It's a challenge that feels like it seldom goes discussed in training. What might feel even worse is that the negative thinking that follows a botched run can sound very loud internally. Today I want to discuss mental health as it pertains to running. I want to try to offer whatever general advice I can. Ideally, I want to just really try to help with destigmatization of mental health and running. My videos will be time-stamped, like all my other videos. My videos, when it comes to like general advice, anything related to mental health, even if they're not really in my traditional format for reviews, they'll be time-stamped. I typically make weekly running shoe reviews and vlogs, so please consider subscribing if you do end up finding this video helpful. Starting off with destigmatizing mental health. With mental health struggles, individuals experiencing interruption to, or maybe being deterred from their cherished activities, it may create more distress. There might not be anything physically preventing the individual from participating in their favorite activities. It's a concept I see that definitely prevails across multiple domains of life, not just running. There are lingering thoughts and feelings that maybe if an individual is not completely incapacitated, they should still be able to suck it up and go do whatever it is that they were planning to do any given day. That includes running especially, or any other kinds of fitness activities. Goes without saying, but it's untrue. It's definitely untrue, contrary to what some critics of mental health may convey. I know there is, for some reason, a big buzz around kind of shooting down mental health concepts like, oh, just suck it up, buttercup. Oh, don't be a snowflake. That's not what this is about. It's the fact that we are all human, and we need to be aware of how things contribute towards us, as well as stigma that exists out there in society that creates some of these negative beliefs, these automatic thoughts and beliefs. If you take nothing else away from this video, I want to introduce something that I think serves as an apt analogy for mental health as a whole. If somebody were to be experiencing pain in their knee, would you just tell them to suck it up? Go finish your run. You have knee pain, whatever. Go finish your run. Come on. Don't be, I was gonna swear, but you know what I mean. Now, certainly, there are types who would sit there across their arms and go, yeah, of course I'd say that. And maybe they would, but the general consensus, it would be to advise that person, say like you were coming to a running coach and saying, I have knee pain. The general consensus would be to either have that runner modify their workout or rest. Stop that workout, take a rest. If you had a really bad feeling in your knee and you stopped and rested, your trainer's not going to be like, what? What do you mean you didn't do your workout? And I think that unfortunately, because of the stigma, it's not always thought the same way when it comes to mental health. There are plenty of good coaches out there who do take mental health into consideration. I'm not saying they're not. I'm not trying to make a blanket statement saying that it doesn't happen across like any trainers. I'm just saying in general, particularly for folks who might be self-training or looking up like workouts online, reading a book, being their own coach, they might be hard on themselves about that. But why is it that we are so quick to automatically give grace for physical pains and struggles, but we can't grant that same level of slack to our mental health. I want you to keep the physical pain analogy in mind. I think it does apply far more as we discuss more topics throughout this and just in general. When it comes to addressing mental health, stigma persists in our society. I think that it prevents someone from reaching out for help. Again, not just running, just in mental health in general. Maybe there is a belief that only those who are experiencing severe mental health issues should be seeking help, or that seeking treatment options take away an opportunity from someone else. I'd offer the following to challenge that a bit. Using our previous analogy, would we spend nearly the same amount of attention and fervor criticizing someone for seeking specialty mental health treatment for a knee pain, for a knee injury, for going through physical therapy? Would this person really carry that belief rationally that they're taking away an opportunity from another patient because they called and got scheduled for physical therapy? More than likely, probably not. It's worth consideration. Want to kind of also discuss general advice for running. These are just some concepts I think mental health applied to running. It's important to kind of contextualize it, and I think it might help process any failed, botched runs, whatever you want to call them, less than desirable outcomes. It might be incredibly challenging to practice coping strategies or even modify running training around your mental health struggles, but it's definitely something we owe to ourselves to be mindful of. No matter what somebody says, mental health conditions should be treated as seriously as physical health pains. If we ignore them, they're going to exacerbate and it'll lead to other issues. Mental health issues can lead to physical health issues and vice versa. Physical health issues can lead to mental health issues. It's all one body, it's whole health. It's all that, right? There is a critical element, I think, within mental health that I think sometimes goes overlooked when it comes to training. It can affect how we rest. It can affect how we eat. It can affect how we recover. Using the example from the beginning of the video, you go out for your run and then you just stop suddenly. Maybe, due to feeling particularly anxious or depressed, leading up to that run for that day, individual might forget to hydrate as much. You might not be drinking as much water as you were intending to. Maybe work stress, interpersonal conflict with your family, financial stress even. Those could all be pretty big contributing factors towards the outcome of a run. And part of that is how we tend to our bodies then because of those stressors. Sleep disturbances, decreased appetite, substance use, everything from, when I say substance use, people automatically jump to like the big drugs, but like that's anything like caffeine, like even just alcohol, like I don't want to say just because those are pretty big substances in general, but especially like caffeine, you might be drinking like 2 pots of coffee and only like 1 cup of water. I mean, yes, there is some argument to be made that, there's still water in that caffeine, but you're just jazzing yourself up on that, right? Just to get through the day. I would say too, though, that, those are common things that folks struggling with mental health might experience. Big part of that with all that is dehydration. We mentioned dehydration a bit ago. You got to think you have so much on your plate. Are you really going to be focusing on hydrating as much? I'm not trying to say that the solution to everything is to hydrate, but it definitely gives you more of a fighting chance throughout those struggles. Naturally, I do think that there is maybe less than desirable outcomes from our running as we maybe even rationally kind of put more focus towards stressors in our day-to-day lives. We're not elite. Most of us aren't elite runners. We're not running for a living. So it's natural to think that, we have families, jobs, mundane stressors that kind of take the front seat for running or other exercise. I do think, though, that there is a consideration we can place into how we make our next steps after a run that doesn't go as planned. Maybe we just set some new kind of self-care routines in place. Maybe it's drinking 2 glasses of water, so to speak, for every cup of coffee we have. Equivalent of a glass of water. Maybe you fill up your Owala, your Camelback, your Yeti, whatever you call it. Maybe you just have a 32 ounce of water for every 2 cups of coffee you have, right? It's those little things you're doing, mindful that you are trying to address your mental health as it pertains to your exercise, to your running. Maybe you start your bedtime routine an hour earlier than usual when you know you have a run coming up the next day, because you know that, hey, I didn't sleep as well, I've had sleep disturbances the last couple nights. I'm not saying your sleep's going to be like 100% better, but it's back to that discussion. It gives you a fighting chance, giving you some extra time in the bed to try to catch up on rest, right? While it's generally considered to be helpful for mental health, I would say that, different exercises might inadvertently contribute towards exacerbating our symptoms for any given day. Maybe one day, you start running already feeling particularly anxious or uneasy, got a lot on your mind, but you insist on maintaining or maybe even ramping up your training towards whatever goal you might be training for. It would be reasonable to explain a failed run as an instance where this might just put you past your max load for the day. The cup runneth over. You were like, I'm really stressed out, but I gotta get this run, and you start running and you stop and you're like, man, I'm tired. I'm just tired, man. That's reasonable. That's being a human. That doesn't make you a failure. There are times I believe where the concept of, in mental health, it's in dialectical behavioral therapy, radical acceptance. I think it serves well in the world of running. We're human. Runs don't always go as planned, but things are what they are. And sometimes not finishing a run can just be that. It can be just, you didn't finish the run. There could be a myriad of contributing factors, but it simply just happened. Rather than judging ourselves, fighting against the schedule, or planning some way to make up for that missed time on that run, we just accept it. It happened, and we'll do what we can for self-care for the next steps. It would serve us better to just accept it as is and pivot to the next workout or race day. If mental health was a driving force for less than desired outcome, accepting it happen and putting that extra bit of self-care and rest, it'll make a world of difference. It's critical to learn from your workouts too. Even if we don't get those desired outcomes, I think it's an opportunity to grow. Mentally, emotionally. Just because we didn't get the physical outcome that we were hoping for from that workout, we can reflect on it, we can grow emotionally, we can grow mentally too. It's what can I learn from that? What can I do better next time I go out? I'd say that in itself is a valuable lesson. You want to take how you reflect on those runs in consideration. Would it be rational to beat yourself up for not going for the last 30-minute stretch? In hindsight, the answer is probably a resounding no, but of course, when you're in the moment, you're going to feel really critical of yourself. Some people might even try to, using that same 30 minutes as an example, you might try to stuff those extra 30 minutes into your rest day the next day, which is very dangerous in itself, but it does happen. Or more commonly, what you will see is people take that 30 minutes and try to stuff it into the next workout. Well, I didn't get that 30 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and just tack that onto the 30 area and plan for that easy run the next workout. If someone didn't do their last set of an intensive workout for lifting, just another sport exercise for comparison, would it really be wise to tell them, hey, go in on Sunday and do that last set? Or, hey, before you get started on your workout on Monday, before you work your legs, make sure you do that 25 sets of bench press. I'm not a lifter, but I'm just coming up with a different exercise to show you kind of conceptually how that might apply to that versus like running. It doesn't really make a lot of sense once it adds up. I have some closing thoughts on this. This isn't meant to be a particularly long video. It's meant to be a dialogue discussing mental health as it pertains to running. You know, I think at the end of the day, people are going to talk. People are going to critique. They're going to judge how individuals address their mental health. But I want you to remember, mental health affects running in any domain of the life, any domains of our lives. It might be challenging, but runners really should give themselves grace when mental health impacts a run. We're out there. We're giving it our best shot any given day, striving to get better. It's this element to the hobby of running that I think accentuates one of the most beautiful concepts in humanity. We strive every day. Even if it feels like we're struggling, falling behind, or not living to how we wish we would be, we pick ourselves up and we move forward. We continue to try to move towards those goals, what we want to see ourselves as, what that actualization looks like. That might not be a full marathon every given day, but we can hope and strive towards those goals. If we have a day we don't cover as much mileage as we hope for, we can rest and chip away at the goal the next day out. No matter how helpless it might feel on those days. You know, you might not finish an exercise, you might not finish a workout as you planned. No matter what, remember you're still as much of a runner as anybody else. You know, I'm 5'10", 200 pounds. I'm still just as much of a runner as somebody who is 6'2" and a $140. You know, they're probably going to do better than me, but we don't know that. We're both runners, though. That's what matters. We're people. We are striving towards our own goals. Maybe that person is trying to do their first 5K. Maybe I look at them and I'm like, oh man, you should definitely be a runner. But maybe they're just starting their journey on running, and then I'm working towards like a marathon. That doesn't make me better. It doesn't make them better. We're runners. It's an individual sport. It's our own goals. We're our own worst enemies, but we need to be our own best advocates too. Something to consider. I hope you found this video helpful and informative. Please let me know if you have any questions, or do you have any topics you'd like to see me discuss related to running. I'll be more than happy to look into it and make a video. I hope you're all staying healthy and safe, and I'll see you all in the next video.